Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, Surah Al-Hijr, chapter 15, verses 51 to 60. We will go through some explanation of these verses. These are the references, and this is our contact in case anyone has a query or a question. Recap so far. The Quran is a complete book of guidance. Events in the human world follow known laws and values. So if we know the laws and values behind these events, then we are in a better position to deal with these events. Those who pass the message of Allah to others should never be fearful of being called insane or mad. This is part of their training for the development of the self. People who look for miracles in worldly life do not understand the functioning of the law of requital. In the universe, there is nothing miraculous. Miracles means that where human intellect cannot understand the reason or the cause of that particular event. And why should we look for that when law of requital says that every cause has an effect? So if we know the cause, then we will know the effect. And if we want particular kind of effects, then we have to go for the causes which produce those effects. So Quran is placing all control of our life in our hand and asking us to understand this law so that we can live life at an optimum level. The Quran, that is the Arabic text, is preserved and protected for all times. There are enough resources for sustenance kept in the planet for all times for mankind. Their equitable distribution is the responsibility of men in power. The competitiveness is kept within us, which is meant to be directed towards doing solid deeds. Everything in the world is created from water. Life and death in the universe follows Allah's laws, and these are kept outside the control of human hands. For example, our physical death. Those who tread on the path of the Quran see tangible benefits as described in various verses. Their developed self becomes evidence of their being on Sirat al-Mustaqim. And of course, if we do not follow this path, then we will get the world, the kind of a state we are in at this moment in time. Verse 1551, events in our life need our attention. These hold clues to the future. وَنَبِّهُمْ عَنْ ضَيْفِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. How this punishment of agonizing chastisement appears. For this, narrate to them the account of the destruction of Lut, the beginning of which takes place from the guests about to arrive at the abode of Ibraheem. If we remember, the verse immediately before this one deals with the punishment due to the evil deeds of human beings. And now over here, the Quran presents this example by telling us that we should look at what is noted over here, that how the things function, how the things work in human life, and particularly the life of those who follow the guidance of Wahi. Verse 1551, some visitors arrive at the place of Ibrahim. This is quite an interesting account of Ibrahim and then subsequently Lut, which we will cover in the next presentation. And there's a lot in it for us. And we should pay particular attention to the way human psyche has been referred to in these verses. More details are noted regarding this visit in verses 1169 to 73. These appear to be the messengers of Allah with access to Wahi regarding the events about to take place, and they conveyed the knowledge to Ibrahim and his family. A few points we need to consider here with regards to drawing benefit for ourselves. Firstly, now the Wahi of Allah is fully preserved and protected in the Quran, and we need to acquire all knowledge for our guidance through education, training, and then developing ourselves. Because there are no messengers of Allah with Wahi are going to come to us, we have to figure out ourselves. Secondly, all events in human life have a cause behind them, and whoever can control these causes by acquiring knowledge of them controls the events of the future. Thirdly, when we get onto this path of Allah, then things start to fall into place, which can be related to the Quranic criteria, and we should never fall into despair like Iblees. We have covered some of these aspects in previous verses where Iblees also came on the scene. Verse 1169 states, وَلَقَدْ جَاءَتْ رُسُلُنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ بِالْبُشْرَى قَالُوا سَلَامًا قَالَ سَلَامٌ فَمَا لَبِثَ أَنْ جَاءَ بِعِجْلٍ حَنِيذٍ. Our messengers came to Ibrahim with glad tidings. They said, Salam. He answered, Salam. And he hastened to entertain them with a roasted calf. From this, it is clear that these messengers knew about Ibrahim and his state of affairs. But it appears Ibrahim was a bit surprised. Why did Allah not tell him in advance? And I put down this question for us to discuss it, that over here the messengers came to Ibrahim to convey certain message and to apprise him with the state of affairs with the people of Lut. But this could have been also revealed to Ibrahim by Allah. Why this particular method was adopted over here, and this thing will become clear as we go through these verses. Verses 52-53, Ibrahim is paid a visit by the messengers. إِذْ دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ فَقَالُوا سَلَامًا قَالَ إِنَّ مِنْكُمْ وَاجِلُونَ قَالُوا لَا تَوْجَلْ إِنَّا نُبَشِّرُكَ بِغُلَامٍ عَلِيمٍ. When they arrived at Ibrahim's abode, they said, we desire your peace. They said salam, and we have gone through this aspect in our previous presentation. He replied that you appear to be strangers, hence I have some apprehensions regarding you. They replied that there is nothing to suspect or fear. We give you glad tidings of such a son who will be the possessor of knowledge. Obviously, there is a lot more to it, but over here, Quran is only dealing with the gist that these messengers came, and what was important was this particular part of their conversation. Verses 52-53, the messengers update the family with glad tidings. Here the Quran has not gone into more details. These are covered in verses 1169-76. There are a number of points which require a reflection to relate this account with circumstances facing us in our daily life. We need to be cautious with any strangers arriving at our door, questioning their identity and purpose of the visit. Merely by someone saying salam does not mean they have good intentions. And we can see that salam being used, which is essentially meaningless because it is not the same salam as explained by the Quran. We went through its root previously, and we also went through Gil, which means that people who hold on to certain reservations within their own hearts, but they are quite happy to use the word salam. The use of this important term and many others has become merely customary, that people never examine its importance in relation to dealing with others. The subsequent exchange here helps Ibrahim to begin to understand the purpose of these messengers of Allah. Ibrahim has reconciled to the idea of not having any male progeny due to his age and that of his wife. These messengers gave this good news here, which helped to make their visit more comfortable. The subsequent exchange became more open, and Ibrahim expressed his opinion in a more frank manner. The next important aspect is that the glad tidings is about the arrival of the son who is going to possess knowledge. Any children going to be brought up in such a learned family, enlightened by Wahi, are expected to be knowledgeable. However, as we know, this was not the case in the family of Yaqub, where Yusuf suffered at the hands of his brothers. So there is a lot more to it to think through and reflect and then discuss it as well. And these things will become clearer as we go through the Quran subsequently, because as we understand that what Wahi is trying to add to our knowledge, these things get answered as our self keeps developing. Here Allah has declared this son to be Nubashiruka bi Ghulamin Alim, new arrival is going to be knowledgeable. Elsewhere the Quran has declared them to be Anbiya, i.e. possessor of Wahi from Allah. For example, 29-27. Verses 54-56, the path of Allah leads to higher expectations. قَالَ أَبَشَّرْتُمُونِي عَلَىٰ أَنْ مَسَّانِيَ الْكِبَرُ فَبِمَا تُبَشِّرُونَ قَالُوا بَشَّرْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ فَلَا تَكُن مِّنَ الْقَانِطِينَ قَالَ وَمَنْ يَقْنَطُ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُونَ. He said that you gave me the glad tidings of a son, whereas I have now grown old. On what basis do you give me this happy news? What expectation can I now have of progeny? They said that we give you absolutely true glad tidings. Do not be hopeless. Ibrahim replied, no, I am not hopeless of the rahmat of Allah. Only those become hopeless of this who, abandoning his path, set out on the wrong path, and those who cannot find the right path. For those who tread on his path, there are comprehensive maps of his rahmat before them. Hence, how can I be hopeless of his rahmat? I only said that according to general expectations, I cannot hope for children at this stage. Now let us look at a bit more detail of these verses, 54, 56. Perseverance on the path of Allah leads to positive outcomes. In reply to the question posed by Ibrahim, the messengers replied that the son is going to be born and it is haqq, for constructive outcomes. Ibrahim needed the support of his sons to establish the house of Rabb as noted in the Quran elsewhere. We have gone through some of these verses in Surah Ibrahim prior to this surah. The visitors made the comment not to be hopeless about this aspect as this is bound to take place. This appears the way the conversation is taking place. We can imagine it and figure it out that how did Ibrahim react on this. In other verses, his wife also reacted and she said that I have gone so old, how I'm going to have a child. At this, Ibrahim immediately realized that these messengers have misunderstood the display of his uncertainty about the arrival of a son at such a late stage in his life. Ibrahim counters this by stating that there is never an iota of hopelessness anywhere in his thinking. He categorically made it clear that he knows that despair has no part in his life because he is following the way of Allah and there is no question of becoming despair. This is that sign of developed self to which the Quran has directed our attention. If we remember from the conduct of Yaqub in relation to Yusuf, he said, وَلَا تَاسُوا مِنْ رُوحِ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يَاسُوا مِنْ رُوحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. This is when Yaqub was addressing his other sons. Never be in despair from the rahmat of Allah, only those do so who have no iman. And it's important for us that we should always remain hopeful if we are following the values of the Quran and also manifesting those divine attributes and developing ourselves, then this path of Allah is always full of hope and expectations. Verse 1556 concludes it for us by stating, Illa Dalun. To think that our striving will go to waste in this life is an act of Iblees. And this is very important that even if sometimes these kind of negative thoughts appear in our heart that there is nothing happening, we should take a cognizance of our path and our own understanding in the light of the Quran and the solid deeds which we are doing. And these should provide us strength. And in any case, by coming together, we strengthen our resolve and provide strength to each other. We need to remain resolute on our path, just like the messengers of Allah. And things do start to fall into place at some point in the future. Now let us look at the next two verses, 57 and 58. These messengers had another important assignment to fulfill. قَالَ فَمَا خَطْبُكُمْ أَيُّهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ قَالُوا إِنَّا أُرْسِلْنَا إِلَىٰ قَوْمٍ مُجْرِمِينَ. Then he said, since you have been sent here, then tell me, for what purpose are you appointed? They replied that we have been sent to a criminal people, i.e. the nation of Lut. The manifestation of the law of requital. I put down this heading because I thought that these messengers of Allah then explained that what is going on with the people of Lut and what situation is over there. That is a manifestation of the law of requital. And Ibrahim asked them that what exactly is your mission after you leave my place. Now comes a very interesting juncture in this account of the discourse between Ibrahim and these messengers of Allah. Ibrahim being curious, manner why should be like that, extremely alive and questioning. So the Quran points to this fact that Ibrahim was not only aware of his own environment, and of course these messengers arrived and he questioned them and their veracity. He was also keen to know that what exactly is their purpose, because they must have said that they have to go somewhere else because they did not have food with him. So obviously they were on some other mission and in a hurry to go somewhere else. Ibrahim, being curious, manner why he should be like that, extremely alive and questioning, inquired from these messengers as to what are their other tasks and where are they heading to after giving this glad tidings of a son. Here the Quran has also drawn our attention to this fact that we need to be fully cognizant of the condition of the society in which we live and to assess every possible aspect of its circumstances and environment. Ibrahim knew the state of the people of Lut and about their evil conduct, hence there is no display of surprise. This is an important point here because he did not display any surprise. Probably he was expecting that these people are already following the wrong path. But he was a bit taken aback that it has arrived so soon. These messengers explained to Ibrahim that they are heading towards the people who are common mujrimeen, that is the criminal. They have transgressed all bounds and we are going in their direction to provide an update on their affairs. In other related verses, the Quran has stated that قَالُوا لَا تَخَفْ إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَىٰ قَوْمٍ لُوط. The messengers informed Ibrahim that they are going to Lut and his people, because they said that there is nothing to fear. Their duty is essentially to go to Qawm Lut and let them know what is going to be their fate. Knowing that the people of Lut are going to be destroyed, Ibrahim asked for leniency and he said, يُجَادِلُنَا فِي قَوْمِ Lut. And Quran says that in 1174 that he started to argue with them. After describing the psyche of Ibrahim as being Halim, that is very tolerant, very compassionate, the Quran has made it crystal clear, Ya Ibrahimu arid an haza innahu qad jaa amruna rabbika wa innahum atihim azabun ghayru mardud. O Ibrahim, seek not this. That is, Allah has now guided Ibrahim. Maybe this came as a wahi to him directly or through these messengers, that there is no point in arguing about it. The decree of your Rabb has gone forth. The law of requital has reached that stage where these people have to be eliminated. For them, there comes an azab which cannot be averted. And a great lesson for us that law of requital ensures that the consequences and outcomes of our deeds manifest themselves at some point in time in the future. And once we have arrived at that position where these are now going to be manifested, and if we know as a man of understanding, then there is no point to now start having compassion for them, because these are the people who have caused so much issues in the world. Then we should never have any sympathy for them, rather we should expect that this should happen at any time quicker so that these people are stopped from doing wrong and spreading evil in the world. Here Allah has made it clear to us to never have any sympathy with the criminals. Always keep in mind what harm they cause to mankind and the cause of deen. Just witness the state of the world around us. Moses did not have any sympathy towards Pharaoh. If you remember, when Pharaoh was destroyed, Moses never had any sympathy for him. Rather, he was actually escaping the wrath of Pharaoh and managed to get away from him with Bani Israel. Now we come to the last part of this presentation, verses 59 and 60. These messengers made it clear that Lut and Momineen will be provided protection by Allah. Illa ala Lutin inna la munajjuhum ajma'in illa amratahu qaddarna innaha la minal ghabirin. The whole of that nation will be destroyed except for the people of Lut's own Jamaat. They will be saved, even to the extent that from among the family of Lut, his wife will also be destroyed. Regarding her, our assessment is that she will not go with Lut, she will remain behind with the opposing people. It is also possible that Ibrahim was concerned about Lut and the Momineen with him, and of course he must have become at peace once he heard that they are going to be saved. Verses 59-60, understanding the finer aspects of the functioning of the law of requital helps to develop ourselves. Now comes before us another very sensitive matter which needs our profound attention. We witness around us people committing criminal acts which lead to imbalances within society. We complain about this day and night. However, when the same people, despite our warnings, land up in trouble, we arrive with a kind heart and express feelings of compassion towards them, while knowing that they caused it themselves. So over here, we should remain alert to these things as well, because this is part of our training for the system of being. And we should observe people around, and people who are following the wrong path, we should know that at some point in time, maybe in this life, they will face the consequences of doing wrong. And when those consequences appear before them, we should not start having sympathy for them. We can, in case they are close by, then we should let them know that didn't we warn you well in advance that this will happen and you will suffer the consequences of your path. Here the Quran has made it crystal clear that Allah's law of requital does not spare anyone. Once the scales reach that stage where a nation has to be destroyed, then nothing can stop the onslaught of this law. Here, unlike Nuh, where he supplicated for his son, Ibrahim did not supplicate. He appears to have just asked for some respite. Maybe he was inquiring about Lut and the Momineen in that town. Possibly his initial reaction is about the safety of Lut plus Momineen among these criminals surrounding them. So these are the kind of questions which arise in our mind, and we should try to figure it out in the light of the Quran and through the functioning of the law of requital. If we combine this account with other verses on this topic, we can figure out the finer aspects which the Quran puts before us. This is where the Quran declares to us, وَلَقَدْ صَرَّفْنَا لِلنَّاسِ فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ فَأَبَى أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ إِلَّا كُفُورًا. That Quran has covered all aspects of human psyche which are in relation to becoming Momineen and Muttaqi, and which can help in the establishment of the system of deen. Keeping in view all the facets of the human psyche, Allah has included all that is required to understand it. It is the human self's own impediments created by each one of them which prevent its acceptance. So we should also look at it that what is holding us back, or what else we require to do this job effectively, that is the development of the self, and then be part of that team of people who are going to establish the system of deen. So these are the kind of questions which arise in our minds, because that is how our psyche develops. And once we find the answers, and then we follow this path. And thanks for your time and for sharing this presentation.